I know exactly why I don't want to do any more tillage.
There you go.
Because that ground just took longer to dry up. Exactly. It doesn't matter what the stuff looks like.
Yeah.
Sure, it makes you feel better or it makes you feel worse. But what puts dollars in your pocket is what comes off with the combine.
Hello and welcome to this session of Crop Chats, where we're looking at winning with no-till across a number of different soil types and throughout the province of Ontario. And today we're at Nick Stokman's farm near Strathroy, where we're going to talk to Nick about why and how and what he does in terms of no-till that's successful here on his farm. So to start, Nick, I think we'll just have you talk about the farm, who's currently involved in the farm, and the history and journey to no-till at this point.
It's just me, myself, and I on the farm here. History, journey into no-till, we go back to the mid-'80s. And the late Doug Glenn, Brian Fletcher from Middlesex Soil and Crop, Don Agar, who was the ag rep from OMAF at the time for Middlesex, and John Slyhoff worked together with the County of Middlesex to set up the Strathmere Lodge demonstration farm. I had expressed interest to John that, I was kind of interested in that project. And before I knew it, I became operator manager of the farm. And it actually worked out really well because it's only a block south of me. And that farm is sand and I'm on clay. So I could get the itch out of my system over there and before my ground was ready. So did that for a few years, was asked to make presentations to farmer groups about what Middlesex Soil and Crop was doing at the Strathmere Lodge farm. Primarily no-till at the time, doing some comparisons as well. Till there's 2,000 plots and a number of other things. So discussed what we were doing, and after one of those presentations, the farmer got up and says, yeah, that no-till's fine on sand, but what about your clay at home? Well, I guess that's kind of was the put up or shut up moment for me. Do I do as I say or do I do as I do? So I started doing no-till in, 89 or 90? Went across to Michigan, picked up some Ross and Coulters, and converted the corn planter. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Had really good years, had years that kind of, yeah, and sometimes back to back.
Interesting.
So I wouldn't go back.
Okay, thanks for that, Nick. So can we talk about, you sort of mentioned a little bit, but talk about even here on your farm, how much difference you have in soil type and the slopes that you might have to deal with.
We're in a glacial area, so there's features on my farms that are related to the glaciers. We're dealing with complex slopes, some relatively short, some fairly long. On this farm here, got 15 feet of fall over 700 feet. And with tram lines, and heavy rains in the spring, we do have some issues there with water movement and soil moving with it. The picture you're seeing there is a field that I acquired about 12 years ago right next door. It had tile every 40 feet going east-west, which you can still see there, but they were trying to push water uphill, so they don't function real well. So we ended up retiling that at 25 on an angle, but it's really interesting that you can still see the tile runs still functioning reasonably well for every 40 feet.
In terms of other things around managing the soils, you also have grass waterways in the farm. Maybe talk to that a little bit. A lot of people have taken them out as they've gone to no-till because the amount of flow has been reduced, but you've still got a significant number of them in.
I tell the neighbor quite often, thanks very kindly for the soil you're depositing in my grass waterway. Actually, talking about that, 2013, I ended up getting a contractor to actually clean out the grass waterway simply because it was no longer effective. The water was going around it. And to this day, I can still see where we pushed up the good dirt.
Interesting.
But no, in those heavier rainfall events or first thing in the spring, if there wasn't a grass waterway there, I'd be working through a rut.
Okay.
At the farm that I bought next door to me in 11 and 12, they had been conventional, and yeah, they made a headland along, quote unquote, this grass waterway. And guess where the water runs? The dead furrow.
Understood. So maybe talk about the crops that you grow and the rotation that supports the no-till system here on the farm.
Primarily a 3-crop rotation if you don't count the cover crop. If you count the cover crop, then it's 4 crops, but it's in 3 years. So basically corn, IP soys, and then hard red winter wheat. Used to try to get red clover to establish in that, but with the amount of soil biology in a no-till system, it gets really difficult to have that red clover, number one, germinate before the bugs get at it. And so was having difficulties with the red clover. So that's where I've looked at other cover crops, and I think we'll touch on it later on the biostrips and that.
Yeah.
The reason I've gone to the IP soys and the hard red winter wheat, I have custom operator do my combining. Corn can kind of get done anytime. The IP soys, I tend to go fairly short season. So hopefully they come off the first things that he does. And then the hard red winter wheat, that can be done the last kind of thing. So trying to work with the neighbor, because I like doing plot work. I feel if I haven't got a plot in the field of some kind, it's a lost opportunity to learn.
And usually it's several plots in the farm.
More than likely, and that carries over from the Strathroy
Understood.
experience.
Yep. What I'm interested in is, why are you a no-tiller? What in general is what took you there? And I know the experience at Strathroy, but this is very different. Sort of, why are you a no-tiller, and you know, what's the take in terms of the mindset to buy into this? Because a lot of people struggle to think that they can do this.
I guess, you know, maybe this kind of sounds a little bit funny. It's a little bit to do with my heritage. Being a Dutchman, or, you know, from Dutch ancestry, we're known to be a little bit stubborn now and then. So if you have it in your mind that you're going to make it work, then you do the things to try to make it work. If there's issues that pop up or things that aren't quite well, then you look, whether you talk to other people that are doing it, whether you use you know, the various sources that are available through extension, through agronomy, whatever, to try to tweak that. And it's no use reinventing the wheel when the wheel is already out there working. Sure, we might have to take a bump off of that wheel. It might just involve a grinder. You know, we don't have to take the cutting torch to it.
Right. So this was from a tour that we did a couple of years ago, Nick, and you sort of dug in and looked at your soil, and everybody was impressed with it, especially when you told them that you were on heavy clay soil. So maybe talk about how has this come to be?
Okay. So this was a biostrip tour in the spring, and this was actually cereal rye plants that overwintered in the wheel track mix, kind of following the work that Lawrence Hogan and Steve Howard are doing up around the Lucknow area. And yeah, maybe I wasn't quite truthful. That farm, that field is actually fairly nice dirt. I know a number of people commented, well, if that was clay, then. No, basically what we were showing there is, the root structure, the aggregate structure, the amount of soil life there, the stuff that we could see as far as the worms and the worm holes, the whole thing. And like, that is my nicest field. I can do a lot of things there.
Let's turn the discussion to cover crops in the context of when did you start cover crops relative to when you started no-tilling? Like, has the cover crops become part of the system, or did they start as part of the system?
No, they ended up coming in later on in the system. Like, we've always tried to have red clover, but as I said, establishment issues have not been the greatest. So then you start looking, okay, what else can we do? Well, go in with oats. Okay, well, we start out with, well, if a little is good, well, more is better. Well, not really. And you definitely don't want to let it get too tall on you, because if you get snow in 1st of November and it goes flat, then you kind of, oh shit, what do I do? But no, as of right now, I'm actually working on, or working with what I'm biostrips. So one mix in the corn rows for next year, and then another mix in next year's wheel track. And I think we'll get to that. Actually, when you take a look at the next picture, you'll see there's different species there. There's sunflowers and faba beans, peas in next year's corn row. And then there's overwintering species such as cereal rye, winter triticale, winter barley, Austrian winter peas in next year's wheel track.
And what did the addition of cover crops, how did that support the no-till system?
I think the thing with that is we're trying to promote more soil biological activity. Mm-hmm. So if we've got living roots, and listening to people that have been in this longer, the living roots is kind of the part of that whole puzzle. Sure, no-till is part of it. Maintaining residue cover, maintaining living roots, integrating livestock, that's the hardest part. But as far as big livestock, we've got all kinds of little livestock working away, but not the big livestock.
Where in the system are you adding cover crops? Only after wheat, or is it looking at it in soybeans? And well, you've got wheat in the soybeans, I guess.
The wheat is the cover crop after the soybeans. It's also the crop that we harvest the following summer. Yes, the first spot definitely is after wheat harvest, and that's where the biostrips come in. Been doing a little bit of work with either after corn harvest with cereal rye, or interstanding corn with cereal rye.
Right.
And the after depends upon the year. When does the corn come off? What's the ground condition like? Mm-hmm. Whether you can still get cereal rye in respectable condition. Yeah, I had tried oats earlier on in the season with the high boy before tassel, but oats, I guess, doesn't compete real well in when there's not a whole lot of sunshine getting down there. But I didn't have any success with the cereal rye or the winter triticale, even though it went on in mid-October and there was all kinds of moisture. And I'm thinking I had too much soil life there. Normally you would see the worms, pull that seed into the midden, and then the crop would grow out of the midden. But I didn't even see that.
Interesting.
So, and like, it was seeded at 50 pounds. I know it worked. I know we seeded it because the bags were empty, and so I'm still wanting to either do it in crop at, say, September, October. I know Warren Scheckenberger's doing that, and there's a number of other people. Or if corn harvest is in respectable time and the ground is right, drill it in afterwards.
So you made a little bit of mention of the biostrips, and this is your second or third year in the biostrips?
Fourth year.
Fourth year now.
Fourth year,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if you've had such success with the no-till, why have you looked at the biostrip till system as an alternative?
When you talk about, really good success with the no-till wheat into soybean stubble, no-brainer. No-till soys into corn stubble, almost a no-brainer. No-till corn into wheat stubble, cover crop, on heavier ground, and there can be issues.
Okay.
So with the cover crop, you as far as timing of termination and stuff like that. So that's where kind of the biostrip stuff, where you've got the two different mixes, the one mix for next year's corn row that basically, hopefully, totally disappears. So you've got black dirt to work with.
In the spring.
In the spring. And then the wheel track overwinters. So hopefully that acts a bit as moisture mitigation too. If it's still pumping a little bit of moisture out, it's also supporting soil biological activity. You've got a bit of a mat there, which kind of maybe supports wheel traffic.
For sure.
If you're kind of on a little bit of a iffy situation kind of thing.
I'm absolutely convinced that undisturbed ground carries the weight significantly better.
Oh, undisturbed ground, period.
Yes.
Carries the weight a lot better.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's talk about how biostrip till comes, and also in light of the no-till, just talk for a minute about how important residue management is. And one of the things that I've learned from others is the importance of the combine setup and such, in terms of both chaff spreading and straw spreading, or harvesting the straw off the field. How important is that, and how does that work when all of your harvesting is done custom? Or
custom operator's been really good to work with. I've been working with him since, the early 80s. So he's a neighbor. And he's kind of transitioning to a younger generation as somebody he's been working with. But that younger generation is very open to listening to, what experience teaches them. And so when it comes to wheat harvest, I have always taken the straw off. The farmer that was taking it is going out of livestock, so he told me this spring that he wasn't going to need it anymore. But then another neighbor indicated that they were quite happy to take it.
And the thing that's interesting about that too is that oftentimes when no-tillers talk about selling the straw off the field, sort of people go, well, why are you doing that? That's not no-till friendly. But in my way, it's very no-till friendly, because you've removed that, you've not disturbed the root systems, so you still have a great amount of residue, both underground and above ground, that's still part of that system that you haven't messed up with tillage.
And not only that, like, you take a look at how much straw there is in some of our wheat crops. And sure, you tried to spread that out over 40 or 45 feet or even 30 feet. It ends up being a bit of a mat.
Yeah.
And on lighter soil, I don't think that's an issue. But on heavier soil, where we haven't got quite that same amount of moisture, when you cover it, the moisture doesn't disappear.
Agreed.
Which is great in the summertime.
Yeah.
You want to hold that moisture, but when it comes to planting in the springtime, you'd like that moisture to leave a little bit.
Understood.
So that you can actually plant into it. But that's why you end up putting a cover crop in, to basically try to supplement what you've actually taken off.
So here's a picture of your drill, and when you're doing straight no-till, you're still doing cover crops, and it says a standard mix over everything.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how you use this to make the biostrip till system work, but you don't really, for the most case, after wheat, you don't broadcast cover crops.
No.
You want to drill them in. Just talk about that a little bit.
So, yeah, because of the nature of the soil that I've got, and as well, you know, as I mentioned before about the amount of soil bugs I've got, I want to put that seed in the ground as best I can. I just use my regular no-till drill for that. When it comes to the biostrips, we that same second cousin of mine, he did some relay cropping, and so he made these plywood dividers, 3/4 inch plywood dividers for the drill, and we just taped them in with masking tape, and so that way I've got 2 rows of one mix and 2 rows of another mix. Need to kind of tweak the mixes a little bit so that when you set the drill, you're kind of going similar amounts of seed going out, because you're dealing with different consistencies of seed.
And you have no way to adjust it other than for the whole.
Exactly. Unless I wanted to change each individual roll, and that becomes don't even think about going there kind of thing.
Yeah. And you talked about having a wheel row and a corn row. So maybe just talk about those species again. So which mix is this?
So this is the wheel track mix, and that's Austrian winter peas. The treated seed is winter barley. There's also some oats in there, and winter or cereal rye and winter triticale.
No legumes in there?
Not in that mix,
Okay.
but I have last year and this year I did put crimson clover through the grass box, because I've got a small seed box on that drill, and once again made dividers for the small seed box and put crimson clover in there. So this is the wheel track mix, or the corn row mix, sorry, the corn row mix. So that's forage peas, faba beans, sunflowers, and then through the grass box, I'm putting some tillage radish.
Okay.
I did have Austrian winter peas in there, but I moved them over to the wheel track mix to give me a little bit more bulk and to try to even out the flow rates on the 2 products. Okay, so this is from this past spring.
Oh, that's a spring one.
And this spring was a wet spring, and let's put it this way: corn never left the bag this year.
But you can really see the rows starting to
definitely
define themselves.
Yeah, there's more volunteer wheat in the corn row than I would like to see. So this year, just before I planted the biostrips, I ended up spraying with Roundup, and I think that wheat seed knows that this Roundup has gone over top, because it germinates right after you finish spraying.
Very true.
And then the next picture is the crimson clover. It's wonderful stuff. We were getting more than an inch a week. And on a Sunday morning, we got another inch, and the ground was getting just about ready to maybe think about it. We got another inch, and I come home from church, and I said, no, there's no corn going in the ground this year. This is in the fall, that same area. You can see the sunflowers starting to bloom. We had a relatively early frost this year, so we didn't get a really nice sunflower bloom that I could go and take to all the neighbors. You can also see there's a fair bit of forage peas there. Interestingly, the faba beans, they're supposed to die after a frost. We never really got a hard frost, and I was still seeing, growth on faba. Sure, the top was dead, but there were still, tillers coming from the bottom well on into the winter.
And this next picture is what sort of catches people that aren't used to cover crops or that take them out in the fall. The amount of biomass that's going into the winter in these types of scenarios. Talk about that a little bit.
This was the 1st of November. Really big dump of heavy snow. And it kind of terminated most of the crops, or most of the cover there.
And that's one problem with the system. If you get that real early heavy snow, it can lay it over and mat it, correct?
And that's where Lawrence and Steve have had issues with they're using different species selection. I'm kind of what I guess I would call mine a Lawrence Hogan light. So they've got some taller species that haven't maybe got quite as much structural integrity, and then they fall over, and then they've kind of defeated the purpose a little bit of having that bare area.
And then one thing that Lawrence and Steve have incorporated is a row cleaner into their operation. And you, being the Dutchman that you are, you said you wanted to fabricate your own. So talk about that a little bit.
So this is was a 6-row conscaled row crop cultivator that was parked in a neighbor's the back corner of a neighbor's shed, and I was able to quote unquote borrow, steal, beg, whatever you want to call it, and converted it into a 4-row row cleaner. I had some when I first went no-till, I had put concave disc row cleaners on the corn planter. They were parked in the back end of my shop. Bought some used spider wheels, took off the concave discs and put the spider wheels on, and mounted them with using a little bit of welding 101 on these cultivator units. And I've used it sometimes, and there's other times that I haven't used it.
So we played with it 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and decided it really wasn't needed in the conditions.
Yeah.
And you parked it and then planted. Just sort of changing tact a little bit. One thing from my travels around talking to guys about no-till is it really varies in terms of whether they're strictly no-till or whether tillage finds its way into the system in some places. Can you talk about if there's tillage at all in your operation?
I guess it depends what you call tillage.
True. 'Cause even the planters, it's tilling.
Yeah, like if you call a coulter in front of a row unit tillage, because you are doing a little bit of tillage.
For sure.
Like if you're talking straight no-till as John Deere 750, just moving the dirt over. No, I've got coulters on everything. Simply because I've got that variable soil conditions.
Mm-hmm.
I know a number of long-term no-tillers that have taken that coulter off. I haven't reached that comfort level yet, especially because of the clay soils that I'm working with.
But essentially, tillage as a separate operation from the planter.
Okay.
Does that happen on the farm at all?
Not anymore, but it did at one point in time in the corn into wheat stubble.
Okay.
Neighbor and myself, we do own a turbo Case IH Turbo 330, and in the fall I would go over the wheat stubble with that to try to create a little bit of black dirt for the spring.
Mm-hmm.
With the biostrips, I've gone away from that. Still have half ownership in that piece of equipment. Still use it now and then. Like I tiled a piece of a field a year ago, and needed it to work that down. Actually, I will confess, I had a neighbor come and use that four-letter word to turn that ground over in the fall. I did ask him to do it at night with the lights off, so that nobody would know, but I know exactly why I don't want to do any more tillage.
There you go.
Because that ground just took longer to dry up.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Which goes against what most people's thought processes are.
The top was beautiful.
Right.
But you take a shovel and you dig down, and the bottom was still shiny.
Okay.
So, and how many fields have we seen over the course of the years where, the soybeans, when they start maturing, you can still see every wheel track of the tractor and the combine, or not the combine, the tractor and the cultivator going on a bit of an angle.
Okay, so let's go back to the sort of the no-till thing. What are the key components that let you be a no-tiller? What are the things that meet your needs that support no-till?
Probably the same things that support conventional farming, but you've got to focus a little bit more on some things than others. I think patience is a big thing.
And so then, in terms of the arsenal on the farm, what are the implements that you have that make the no-till system work?
Guess the main implement is this up here.
Nobody said it that way. That's interesting.
Well, and that goes back to the mindset.
Understood. Yep.
But yeah, okay, the no-till drill and a corn planter or soybean planter that has the ability to plant into firmer dirt with a residue cover. So once again, depending on what your soil types are, what do you need on there? Do you need trash whippers? Do you need a coulter? Do you need heavier down pressure springs? Do you need more weight? Like I've got the liquid fertilizer tanks on the drill. The soybean planter used to be my soybean and corn planter. I left the tanks on it because it's a Case IH pea shooter.
How important is the sprayer in the no-till situation versus conventional? Are you finding that in no-tilling, your weed control and other pest control is more intensive or about the same?
I'm thinking it's fairly similar. Sure, you're going to have a transition when you're first starting. There's plant species that thrive much better in a reduced till system.
Okay, something different for you compared to a lot of no-tillers is access to manure. Mm-hmm. And so talk about how you have managed the manure in this no-till system.
Basically, the neighbor has been taking a fair bit of my manure. When he has wheat in his rotation, it'll usually go to him unless one of my fields is also coming out of wheat and nutrient levels are such that it would benefit from having the manure. But for instance, the field here at home where Ian has taken these pictures from, it hadn't seen manure for probably 15 years, simply because my P levels were so high. My K levels have come down because we've been taking straw off, but and P is an issue. And my layer manure is both high in P and K. But the neighbor that would normally take my manure didn't have wheat in the rotation this year, so that's why it went on here.
Nick, I think this is an important one, is that, we're trying to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to no-till. And you've been at it a long time, longer than most. Are there any hurdles that you had to overcome that would keep people out of it? And, we talk about people that don't want to do no-till often talk about fertilizer management as a problem in terms of stratification. We talk about delayed planting and stuff. We talk about soil compaction. Are there any hurdles that you would identify to people that are things you had to overcome?
Well, I think with the fertilizer management, it depends where your fertility levels are when you start. As far as planting delays, slower emergence, yeah, maybe there's slower emergence, but then it depends upon the year. This year, we didn't get the beans planted till the 17th and 18th of June, and they were up in 5 days.
And it's interesting how a lot of people talk about, those no-till fields look ugly for whatever number of weeks or something, but that's not indicative of what might go into the grain buggy.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what the stuff looks like.
Yeah.
Sure. It makes you feel better or it makes you feel worse. But what puts dollars in your pocket is what comes off with the combine.
Yeah. And how concerned are you about soil compaction in your system? Because you don't really have a way other than crop rotation and cover crops to go after it if you cause it.
I try not to cause it, but we had 8.3 inches of rain pre-wheat harvest, and I can take you out into the wheat field, and yeah, those lug marks from the combine are deeper than I would like to see.
Gotcha.
I'm hoping that the bio strips and longer term patience, and as well the fact that we haven't done tillage here for many years, that ground is firmer, it's able to support that a little better.
When you think about the neighborhood and such, are there any places in your system that you think you're losing relative to the neighbors?
I don't ask the neighbors what their yields are, so I really don't know.
But you're an observant fellow, so
I might have lower yields. I might have better yields. When I ask the custom operator, I'm usually in the same ballpark.
in your system, where are the wins for you? Why is no-till where you are?
I've got 3 pieces of equipment that will plant all my crops. I don't need to have 2 more pieces of equipment that disturb the soil.
And more labor to run them.
And more time frame. Like now I can do my barn work, and then I can go and plant.
Mm-hmm.
I still need a sprayer. I don't have a combine simply because of the size of the operation. And yeah.
And you are sort of a lifelong learner with this stuff too, right? You like to dabble.
Oh, exactly. As I said before, if you have if you don't have a plot in the field, that's a missed opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
I think I'll quit learning. Well, actually, I was going to say I'll quit learning when they put grass over me, but who knows? I just might figure out what soil biology is like then.
Is there anything that would make you walk away from your no-till system back to a more conventional system?
No.
Okay. Is there any next steps that you're contemplating? Like, so the biostrip till has been an interesting next step for you. And so you're still working through that, but are there any other things that you've sort of seen in your research or your conversations with people that are a next step for you?
I'd like to get some piece of equipment that I could fill in the tram lines where they've washed out.
Right.
Simply because when I'm going through there now with the sprayer, I know where those spots are, and I've got to hit the controls to move the boom up, just because the sprayer is on more of an angle on that.
Okay, so we're very close to the end. A lot of people hopefully will watch this series with different people taking different ideas from them. What advice would you have for others that would like to get started on no-till?
Talk to people that are doing it, and especially people that have been doing it for a longer time frame. As far as your drainage, your fertility, your weed control, your levelness, we've kind of touched that before. It's going to be the same thing as on a conventional system. If your ground is not quote unquote right for a conventional system, it's not going to be quote unquote right for a no-till system. And don't expect instantaneous results. Give yourself, my first initial word would be 10 years, but give yourself at least 5 years.
Well, Nick, on behalf of those that'll have a chance to watch this series and your session specifically, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to have this conversation with me and being willing to share. And with your permission, we'll let people know how to get a hold of you if they have questions for you.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for being part of this.
Thank you.
Pleasure.